continue with our message and meditation on our responsibility as stewards of God and our stewardship of our church and our ministry. Again, just to remind you about the stewardship devotion here, just to fill this out. This is for you to keep for yourself. If you didn't do so last week, please do so. Just give you time to look it over and keep it with you over the year. Things you want to change, encourage yourself to do as a steward of God. And on the back, there's some great principles here that remind us of the things that when we think about what it means to be a steward and what stewardship is. Good reminders in the back. We would just look at the readings real quick from 1 Thessalonians and our gospel reading in Luke. Really good stewardship principles here. As we get to the end of the church here, right before, leading up to Advent, the themes are kind of the ends of the days, the day of the Lord, the coming destruction, or the concerns that we're going to see, that especially when we saw Luke, what Jesus was warning his disciples about what is yet to come, of the wars, the rumors of wars, and the famines, and the struggles, and the pestilence, and the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem, and just kind of this dooms and glooms. And when all that's going on, I just love it. He just says, just be witnesses. Don't worry, don't fright, don't be fearful. Just witness the hope that you have. Don't even worry about what you're going to say. I'll give you the words through the Holy Spirit what to say to give a defense to the faith that you have. But in the midst of this, just be a witness. And Paul echoes that in 1 Thessalonians, because what's happening there is that the people weren't doing anything. They knew Christ was going to come, that he said he will come, and so they figured, well, we might as well not do anything. We'll sit around, lay around, and just wait for the end of the world to come. And that's when Paul says, no, just be willing to serve. That's where we get the infamous line, if you don't work, you don't eat. That as we wait for the Lord, as we go through these end days, continue to serve, always willing to do good for others. And that's a big part of our message is about stewardship, is that what it means to be a Christian is we come together here to be in the presence of Christ and receive from him his word, his body and blood, to be encouraged with each other, to be encouraged in the word of God. We come here so that we can go back out into this world and be servants of God. We can be servants in our families. We're going to be servants in our community. We're going to be servants in our workplaces. We're going to be witnesses in those places. That wherever we go, always strive to do what is good. In other words, what we do is to give glory to God. And that's that stewardship principle. It's simply we're here to give glory to God and to worship him with what he has given to us, where he has placed us in his life. Whether we have a job, whether we're a stay-at-home mom, whether we're a student, whether we're just in kindergarten, or we're retired, it doesn't matter. God has placed us in whatever role so that we can give him glory in our service to other people. So I want to, for today, go back to Timothy. As we read this last week, talking about, flee from that desire of wanting things. Flee from that love of money. Because again, the love of money, and the desire to get rich, the desire to have more possessions, that's the root of all kinds of evil. So he says, but you, Paul writing to Timothy, but you, man of God, flee from all this, and instead pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. So when we talk about our theme of this outrageous generosity, that first step to be truly generous, and not just generous but outrageously generous, is that first we have to flee from that, again, that love to get stuff. Or flee from that we think that money is going to be our savior, or flee from that temptation of making money or possessions or treasures our God and to worship them as idols. But that next step is not just flee, but instead as you flee, pursue to what is good, of faithfulness, godliness, of righteousness. Do those things, pursue those things that are good and wholesome. That, as Paul was opposed to that, we live in the light. We live in the light of Jesus, not in the darkness of sin, of idols, but no, we live in the light of Jesus and pursue those things that are good. And a big part of what is good is that we are charitable to others. We're generous to others. Pursue in our lives, instead of thinking about what I need for myself, pursue what we start thinking, what do other people need? Where can I be helpful for other people? I think a great example is what Ashley's doing. And especially what we do this time of year, there's a lot of opportunities of being generous to others, whether it's helping a family's going through the chemo to get a little something from our church that just shows that we care about them. Or helping an angel tree family, a family whose mom or dad is incarcerated and can't be there for Christmas, that we can at least provide that little sense of gifts and love and care for on behalf of that parent. Or what the thousands of other things our members do this time of year, being generous to others. That's what's that pursuing what is good and godly and righteous. What can we do for others? Because when we pursue that of wealth and money, that's where the problems come in. That's when stress comes in, and frustration and anger and jealousy and strife. There's no joy in that. There's no happiness. But when we pursue what is right and good, not for ourselves, but that for others, that's where we find true joy and peace in this world, because that's where we find Jesus, who again, he pursued us and came for us. You know, one thing about stewardship, and you guys, you might have heard this before, I think one of the worst stewardship principles to share or to preach or to tell a story is this idea that if you give to the Lord's going to return to bless you with more material good. You've ever heard a story? In certain circles, I'm not going to point at any church or tradition now, but there are certain circles that seems to be emphasized, but I've heard it in Lutheran churches too, so I don't say Lutherans are the perfect church here. Well, some of that. We are pretty good. I mean, I don't say we're good. Anyway. But I've been in certain presentations where you hear the story of, someone went to church and they were doing a capital campaign or a stewardship emphasis, and the pastor's really like, hey, we could use another $100 or $1,000, and then someone was really touched and convinced, and they didn't have a whole lot. Maybe they had that last $100 that they were hoping to use to pay off a final bill, or maybe there was some prescription, but instead they felt it was more important to give that $100, or maybe the last $100 to the church, or the ministry, or the mission, or wherever they were working on. And as they're leaving church, a stranger would come up to them and says, hey, I was moved by the Spirit, and I feel like I know you've been struggling, and I'm going to give you, here's a gift of $500. I want to give to you. You ever heard that variation of that? There's a lot of different variations. That was my variation. And I think the point, to put less construction on that message, I think the point that's trying to be conveyed is that when we give to the Lord, we are blessed back. And I'm not disputing that. There's no doubt. When we give, whether it's money or time, when we pursue, let's put it that way, when we pursue what is righteous and do what is good and godly, there's no doubt there's a blessing. But it's not necessarily material blessing. I guess that's my issue with some of those stories, that just because I give money to the church doesn't mean I'm going to get a raise the next year, or I'm going to come across some great inheritance, or some person is going to generously give me more. That may happen, but it may not happen, and oftentimes it won't happen. See, I want you to think about outrageous generosity as this way. To be generous to what God has given to you. To be generous with no expectation of being rewarded back. And I think that's the difference between just being generous and then kind of this theme I'm using is being outrageously generous. It's easy to be generous knowing that you're going to get something back. In other words, I think a lot of people are generous sometimes because they're going to get recognized, they're going to get awarded somehow, they're going to get a tax break, they're going to get their name in the newspaper, they're going to be invited to a special dinner, they're going to be given a pat on the back, they're going to be praised for their gift, whatever. That it's very easy when that happens to be extremely generous. But let's also be generous when we never get recognized, when we never get awarded, when we don't get anything gained by it, but we do it because we're pursuing what is right. Because we're doing what needs to be done. And that's, I think, the case of outrageous generosity. And there's so many examples of it. Even within our church, I see examples of it in Christendom, of people just being generous. A good example is this. It's nothing with the church or anything, but it's actually at St. Mary's Hospital. They put a new addition there a few years ago, and I happened to be in there. And of course, they had a big wall of fame. Again, people were generous with their money to donate to the hospital, like thousands and thousands of dollars. I think this was at St. Mary's. Now I'm second guessing myself. So take that with grain of salt. I don't think it's St. Mary's. But anyway, I was at some place, and I think I've shared this story before, where the donors give it. And there was one line there, and I think it was like almost like $1 million. Let's just say it's $1 million. It was a lot of money. And you have every name there, like people gave up to $1 million. You have these trusts and these corporations, and there was one line that said anonymous. And I'm looking at that and says, who on earth would give $1 million and not take credit for it? But someone did. To me, I think that's a great example of outrageous generosity. But look at our own church. There are families here. There's lots of families here who give thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every single year to our church. And we don't do anything special for them. You don't get any, the people who give so much money to the church don't get anything different than the person who gives $50 a year. We're all the same. And when I think about it, and I share this to you because there's something graceful about that, about what a church is really about. The church is for all people. Whether you can give nothing, we still love you, and you're welcome, and you're part of our family. And we are blessed for those who are able to give so much more. That's outrageous generosity. Or there's people who devote so much time to this church. There's people in this church that you don't realize that if they left today, we will actually be in trouble. Because there are things that get done by the generosity of members who give up so much of their hours and weeks and days to this church to get things going. This is a big entity here with a lot of moving parts, and we can't pay for all of everyone to do these moving parts. And so we're blessed with the generosity of people's times. And the thing about a lot of these people, no one really knows who they are. They're in the background. They do it quietly. They do it lovingly because they love their church. They love their Lord. I see the outrageous generosity, what happens outside this church, and that's what I really appreciate. Of the simple things that people do week in and week out, year after year, of what they do in their families, in their communities. And again, they do it because it's the right thing to do. Or whether it's helping a homeless shelter, raising funds to give money every year to a homeless shelter, or having a social every year where they collect money and so they can donate to a local charity, or someone who goes and visits and spends time at a nursing facility visiting patients, just stopping in and just giving a lonely person some of their time to care for them. And the stories go on and on of what so many of our members do. And I want you to think that for yourself. Because again, what motivates us is how Jesus was so outrageously generous to all of us and to this whole world. Again, we do this not for gain, not because it's going to make us look good before God. It's not going to get us to heaven. That was all done by Jesus already. We do this because our home is waiting for us in heaven. See, I love that last verse in Luke. As Jesus is going through this doom and gloom scenarios, laying out all the worst things that's going to happen. And what does he say at the end? When all this is coming, straighten up, raise your head, and look, for your Redeemer is coming. I want you to think about that as you go through life. Especially when things are getting tough. When you feel like you don't want to be generous. When you feel like you're hurting, you're lacking. All this stuff here, it's going to pass away. But rejoice. Straighten up, raise your head, look above. That's where Jesus is coming. And he will come. He will come soon. And then finally we can be home. In the meantime, let's just be generous to the people around us. Amen.
Amen.